All right, Asher, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's good to see you. It's been a little while. So,
Yeah,
growing out the hair a little bit. I like it.
I am. Yeah, hair in the just everywhere. Got the beard too. Yeah.
And living a really aesthetic, I should say, and minimal lifestyle behind you. I see. So,
Right now, yeah, it's because we're just moving into the new facility for the Newman Center up at NDSU. So
okay.
yeah,
Awesome. Excited to spend a little bit of time with you and hear about your story. And thought I would just kind of start by handing it to you and just saying, why don't you share a little bit like about yourself, where you're from, and where you're at, what you're doing right now. So,
all right, sounds good. So I'm from the Twin Cities, specifically like Maple Grove. So one of the suburbs. And so right now I'm up at NDSU, and I'm currently a junior going into history. And I also work at St. Paul's Newman Center, doing peer ministry. So yeah,
that's
it's great.
awesome. I can't believe you're a junior already.
I know it's flying by. It's something else. I tell you what.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what do you want to do with history?
So right now I'm can't really decide between if I want to go to like teaching with it. But I know 100% I want to start writing
Hmm.
more of like popular history, so just bringing the joy that I have for history to as many people as possible. So,
Do you have like a favorite genre of history or like era? I guess maybe the right word, era of history.
yeah, I'd have to say probably ancient or medieval. There's a lot of cool things and it's just very Catholic. So it's great.
That's awesome. Very nice, man. Well, do you remember how we met?
I do. I do. It's, yeah, it was 3 years ago Monday, I think it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah. This would have been the week.
Yeah. It was, yeah. So yeah, it was watermelon volleyball over at Roosevelt Park in Fargo.
That's right. Which is not playing volleyball with watermelons, which would be a total disaster.
No.
And often people get kind of confused about that. But
Yes.
yeah, we take over a park and we set up, some volleyball nets, and people are playing ultimate frisbee, spike ball, and then we eat watermelon for a snack. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's where we met. I remember, I think Father Cheney might have introduced us, or we met and then talked to Father after. But that was, an outreach event that we were doing. You were a freshman
Mhm.
at NDSU and you weren't Catholic. So how did you find yourself at a Catholic outreach event on the opening week of your freshman year at NDSU?
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I got to give some context with this. So growing up, I was raised non-denominational Protestant.
Okay.
Um, and we were very involved in our faith as a kid. I have two brothers and great mom and dad, and so we went to church every weekend, and we were involved in a bunch of different kinds of ministry. Um, and so it was a very faith based upbringing. I got the nickname as a kid, the little Billy Graham, because I'd walk around and I just try to tell everyone I knew about Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have any stories like what, like in line at the grocery store or what?
Well, so there was one time, I think it was about four, I broke my arm. And while they like put me on some laughing gas and they were injecting me with like a heavier sedative, I was asking all the nurses and doctors if they knew Jesus and what church they went to.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
The little Billy Graham. I didn't know that.
yeah, it was I still hold on to that nickname.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, so I was faithful for a really long time. It was pretty much up until it was middle school when I started getting introduced to a lot more of a worldly lifestyle, because I went to private school up until eighth grade, and it was a very conservative Christian private school. Um, but halfway through eighth grade, I moved to a public school, and so being just kind of immersed in this worldly culture, it seemed really foreign and almost alluring to me, a lot of the things. So I began to kind of immerse myself into sin, and At the same time, there was a lot of emotional upheaval. When I was, I believe, 13, my grandmother passed away from cancer. It was like an 11-year fight, so it was very hard to slowly see her just lose the fight. And then 2 years later, this was my freshman year of high school, my grandfather passed away. And my grandfather's passing really shook me. Because I don't know, before that, I never really thought about um, how life isn't permanent. You know, I kind of knew it, but didn't really think about it. And I was there when my grandfather passed away. And so seeing the one moment him being alive and the next moment he wasn't,
Yeah.
that, yeah, shook me to my core.
Yeah. What was that experience like for you?
I don't know. It kind of changed the way I thought about things. I began to really kind of blame God, because my church was very prosperity gospel,
Mm.
and so I couldn't match the God that I learned about and throughout my life, and then the God who took my grandfather. You know, so it was
Yeah.
it shook me, and it only worsened my my habits. I and it helped me to, it gave justification for them.
Mm.
And slowly, I didn't give up my faith then, but slowly, throughout high school, it became less and less of a priority. And we kind of got out of the habit of going to church as a family when when my mom had to take care of my grandmother and my grandfather when they were passing. And so it was just like the perfect storm of emotional discourse, and then being immersed in the worldly culture, and then sins being formed, and it just became a spiral, until like my junior and my senior year of high school, for the most part, were like one of the lowest points in my life. Um, I honestly had no hope for my future. I hated myself. I I honestly wanted to die.
Mm.
Um, I did not want to keep on living. Living was too hard. Um, and I became very heavily involved in philosophy and all these things. And I searched desperately for meaning throughout those 2 years. I looked into existentialism, into absurdism, into stoicism, any of these pop philosophies that I hoped could give some meaning to my life. Um, but I mean, they all fell short. And I don't know, slowly through kind of searching, I found Jordan Peterson.
Oh,
And
nice.
right, he kind of gave me the footing that like Christianity isn't absurd to believe in,
Mm.
that it has basis. And so like he kind of put me back on the path to Christianity, right? And God kind of gave me the clarity to see like, okay, my life before God was 1,000 times, or my life with God was 1,000 times better than my life without God, right? Like since I've been turning away from him, my life is miserable. Um,
So, so what was it about Jordan Peterson then? Because Jordan Peterson
mhm,
doesn't necessarily like, he's very Aristotelian and like very logical in his thought and very
mhm,
Judeo-Christian, I would say. But I don't think he, at this point, he would say that he is a Christian yet. But he's certainly searching for meaning and truth. So, what was it about Jordan Peterson that sort of, I guess, brought you back to Christianity, or at least started you back on that journey from
mhm.
all of these other philosophies?
Yeah. So I think it was specifically how he portrayed Christianity as reasonable. And I think at some points he says it's like the most reasonable thing. Like, and he went through, there's a series he did and how like the Bible, especially the Old Testament, from what I remember, was psychologically true,
Hmm.
right? So like all these different things were it created like a logical and like scientific truth to Christianity. Um and he infused it with that search for meaning. So like I feel like a bunch of most young men are looking for meaning in their life, looking for some kind of like reason to fight.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of showed me that like he kind of put me on the path to realize that Christianity was that place where you can get that ultimate meaning.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's kind of what it was. And so once I kind of like had that thought, like, okay, I should probably become Christian again, right? Because I was way better when I was a Christian than I was now. Um, I had like this idea that I wouldn't go into it just like revert back to what I was growing up, right? And looking back, this was a grace from the Lord. Um, and so what I did was I said I was going to look at everything Christian, right? So I was going to look at every different type of denomination to try and see which one I would be. Um, and so I started with the Orthodox,
Well, why
right?
why did you start with the Orthodox? I feel like so I come from like a non-Catholic background
Yeah,
also, and like Orthodox, Catholic weren't anywhere on my radar. I
yeah.
would have probably come back and said, "Oh, I'll check out Lutheran or like Calvinism or something like that." So like, yeah, Orthodox.
I thought I would go as weird as possible, right? So what is completely foreign but still Christian? I was like,
Sure.
okay, I thought I would, I'd probably become a Protestant again, but I'll give these guys a chance, and I probably won't become them, so I'll just get them out of the way first, so I can get to what I really want to be. Um, and so I
Just
started
check
with
it off the list and move on.
pretty much, yeah. And so I looked at Orthodox, and that there were some compelling things about it, mainly being the beards. No, but
That makes sense now.
right. I didn't have a beard back then though, so it was a foretelling. Uh, but no, and so just it didn't really sit with me. Um, so then I thought, I'd check out the Catholics next. Um, and as I was researching it, I was watching a lot of Catholic Answers. I was watching a lot of those Father Mike Schmidt's videos that he puts out for Ascension Presents, and I was reading a bit too, and um, there just a lot of these arguments started to make sense. Um, like the reasons for the church, right? Why we need like an actual church, not just like a bunch of independent churches.
Mm-hmm.
Oh crap,
That's all right.
my bad.
Phone call.
Yes. Okay, getting back to it. Um, where was I at?
You were talking about like the reasons for authority, like the church.
Okay, yes. So I began to understand why we need a church, right? Not just a bunch of independent churches. Um, I began to realize like the doctrines on Mary. That was a big one for me that I just was very foreign to me, because the only times we talked about Mary was at Christmas, and that was about it, right? So learning about her and her role in everything and how God elevates her, that was huge on my conversion, and just how it's all backed up by Scripture. And then the big thing that got me was the Eucharist. That is what made me Catholic. Um, and I remember the um, the uh, the thing that really like the moment that just changed it all for me was I was watching YouTube, looking at some things, and um, a focus thing came up, and it was Father Mike Schmidt's talk. I can't remember what focus conference it was, but the video is called "The Hour That'll Change Your Life."
Yeah.
And it's Father Mike Schmidt's talking about the Eucharist, and he just started to describe it in ways that I had never heard communion described, because communion was something we did like once or three times every year, and you'd pass out your plate and you'd grab the piece of bread and your little shot of grape juice, and it was only in remembrance. It was just a symbol of Jesus. And so it was kind of inconsequential. It was something he told us to do, so we do it every once in a while. But Father Mike Schmidt started describing this as like the body of Jesus, and why that's important. I remember he said, he was telling a story about a focus missionary who was talking to a Protestant, actually, and the Protestant said to the Catholic, like, don't you want a personal relationship with Jesus? And the Catholic missionary said back, I want more. I want intimacy. And when he said that, like, I don't know, I had never heard about an intimacy as deep as the Eucharist. He goes on in the video to describe the Eucharist as like the love between a husband and wife, right? That unity of two people into one, right? Like that's the love that Christ has for us, and that's what he does in the Eucharist, is he gives us his body. Was just this other level of intimacy. I remember bawling my eyes out, just crying and crying and crying, and I just felt overwhelmed by this peace. And I knew that it was over. My search was over. Like that I had to become Catholic, and that was in August of 2019, I think. I believe so. Yeah, I graduated 2019. Yeah, so the summer of 2019, and I had about 2 weeks before I came up to NDSU, and so it was kind of crunch time, So we found the only Catholic priest that my family knew, and it was because my brother went to a private school, Father McClellan over at Providence Academy. He's great. But he was the first priest I ever talked to. He took me to their chapel. He showed me around. He told me about St. Paul's Newman Center up at NDSU. He's like, this is a great Newman Center. Like, you have to get involved when you go up there. He showed me the website and everything. And so I get up on campus, and I'm ready. I want to become Catholic. I want to do it now,
Yeah.
And so I start looking for Bison Catholic. I eventually bump into someone who's wearing the t-shirt like this one.
There
I thought they were working, but it was just another freshman. But Isaac Timmerman, he invited me to my first mass. And I mean, I just it was completely foreign to me. I was stumbling through the instructions. I didn't know what I was doing. I was frantically trying to figure out, but it was just a life-changing experience, just feeling that presence of Christ in front of me. It was insane.
So that was your first mass.
Yes.
So you see this video, which is awesome. I was actually there live at that talk. It was incredible. So yeah, great talk. But you hear this video, you have this profound encounter with Christ and and his presence, his love, his peace, as you're learning about the Eucharist. And then it's several weeks now until you actually get to go to your first mass. So what was that experience like at your first mass?
I mean, it was amazing. I can recall that same presence, that same peace that I felt sitting on my couch, right? Just watching that video and bawling was that same peace that I felt with magnified, though, because Christ was actually in front of me, right? I don't know if I would have had the same experience if I went to a mass beforehand, right? Because I didn't know what to expect, and I knew that Christ was present there. So like having that faith and seeing Christ, oh my gosh, it was just incredible. I don't think I'll ever forget the day.
It's
Like
awesome.
it was amazing. And yeah, and then um I talked to Monsignor Schlesman after Mass. He was, very gracious in talking to me, and I told him I was becoming Catholic, and so yeah. And then he actually invited me to all the Welcome Week stuff up at NDSU, and the next day was watermelon volleyball, and so I got the bunch of group of people meeting up at the high rises, and we walked over to Roosevelt Park, and I think it was either Isaac. I think Isaac introduced you to me,
Mm.
and we just had this great conversation, and it was amazing. Yeah,
Oh man. Well, it's just like, I mean, it's just proof that the Holy Spirit is the one who does all of this, right?
seriously.
So, okay, so that brings us up to your freshman year at NDSU, and
Mhm.
so, I mean, college can be a difficult time for a lot of people. Many students actually fall away from their faith during their college years, and so, what was that first year at NDSU like for you? What were some of like the challenges that maybe you experienced, or maybe even like that you saw your friends experience with their faith? And then how did you experience those?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'd like to say that I got up on campus and I was just living the saintly lifestyle, but I like 100% was not. I would show up to Bible study and I'd know what I had to do, but I had a lot of I would still live the worldly lifestyle. I was combating that. Um, I was never really big at partying um, when I was in high school, but coming to college and then being invited to all of these things and having a bunch of friends who would do it. Like my main group of friends, my first year, were all into the party scene, and so I would go and I'd have some. So I'd drink and I went to like at one frat party, one house party. I wasn't a huge partier, but I would still go to it. But I mean, and then I'd wake up the next morning and go to mass.
Hmm.
And so there was like this still like me waning off of, you know, the world that was around me. Um, but I don't know, it was still that assurance that God was there and that I was, following that path. And then you and your Bible study really helped me out. Um,
Churchill, the Churchill Bible
Churchill,
study.
oh
That is
yeah,
like, I I think my last year on campus was like one of the most fruitful years. I mean, it was just that group of guys yeah, it was just awesome.
yeah, it was just a great group, and so they were like, it was like the one lifeline I had was
Mm.
that in RCIA. Brad and Mary over at Saint Mary's Cathedral are amazing. And
Agreed.
they just laid it all out. And so I mean, slowly I was like, okay, I've got to stop this stuff, and so slowly I was trying to wane from it. Um, and it was actually funny. So they said I needed a sponsor, and I was gonna ask you, but I was like, he's got a wife and kids. He probably will say no. He's got a job, whatever. And so I was like, just sign me up with someone random. And then Brad was like, okay. And then the day that I need my sponsors, Brad's like, okay, you're gonna meet your sponsor. And then I look over and I see you walking through the doors, and you're like, hey man.
Oh man. So
I was like,
you didn't know it was me.
no, I didn't know it was you until like I saw you there. And it's so funny how the Lord works, right? Like
Agreed.
it's just insane.
Yeah. That's, oh man, it's awesome. Well, it
Yeah.
was an honor. So why don't you so uh did you get confirmed? Were you confirmed?
Yes. So the main thing, like the big thing that happened was COVID hit, right? And it hit, spring break around that time. And so I I went through all of the rites before confirmation, right? Like I received my first confession. I had done all the rites of confirmation, but I never actually got confirmed. And so it all went topsy turvy, right? Like we went from, okay, Easter Vigil, can't wait, to, oh, when is this happening? Because Easter got canceled, And so it's
Yeah.
like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, do I wait until next year? Do I like how is this gonna work? It was actually a blessing in disguise because what it did was it removed me from what I was doing with my friends.
Mm.
So like I stopped drinking. I stopped, I didn't go, I haven't been to a party since. Um, and so there was this grace in it that, okay, like here we go. And then you invited me into discipleship with focus. And so then I had like another thing to stop me from doing these things, like, because you've got chastity, sobriety, and excellence. So these were things that I had to live by now. And so there was a lot of that. And then I got a call from Mary, and she's like, okay, the bishop just said we can have private masses for those who want to get confirmed. um, when can you come up? And I was like, as soon as possible, right? Because I was itching to get the Eucharist. I knew the grace that was there, and I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
yeah,
that,
sorry, you go.
well, I was just like, that was amazing too, because like this massive cathedral, like just to us, right? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, your family and, yeah, I mean, Nicole and I, and, oh man, it was beautiful.
Seriously. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. I I didn't even know, like, yeah, and to have Father Cheney there, who's the head of the Newman Center, so to have him there at this very intimate mass, I mean, um it was very, very cool. And I remember, and I got my own chalice. Um so receiving the Eucharist in the blood of our Lord, like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And the smell of the chrism and the chrism oil, like,
Yeah.
man, it was one of the happiest moments of my life.
Hmm.
It probably won't be rivaled. Well, it won't be rivaled, but it'll be up there with marriage
Yeah.
and my first kid and all that. Like, receiving Jesus for the first time.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And so, and then right after that, there was a position for a peer ministership at the Newman Center. And so I got on a phone call with Father Cheney, and, he asked me a bunch of questions, and he was interviewing me. And at the end of it, he just asked me, so, like, when do you want to start? Right. Like, and it was just this amazing thing. And so then I had the responsibility of being a peer minister and being a focused disciple, like leading a Bible study and being a Christian to fight. I had all of these responsibilities, and so I shaped myself up. I must, as best as I could, and through the grace of God. And so through the past couple of years, like the past year, um, going through my first year of peer ministry and all of this, like, I just feel the Lord's totally at work, because it's been an amazing experience. I've met some of the best friends in my entire life. Like, the quality of people I've met has skyrocketed. The way I'm living, I've never been happier, right? And so
Yeah.
it's just been amazing.
What would you say, like the three things, like like the biggest things, big rocks, if you will, that are like keeping you anchored in your Catholic faith now as a junior? Like, what are those things that just like keep you on the right track, help you to live out that discipleship that you are?
Yeah. One big one is mass, right? So I try to go to mass as much as I possibly can, right? So one of the big things for that for me was actually, I'm going to weasel him in here, Saint Louis, whose feast day is the King of France. His
Yeah.
feast day is today, um, and so he would go to mass so much that his advisors were actually like confronted him and said, "You're spending too much time at mass," and he rebuked them, saying like, if I spent as much time jousting, you wouldn't be me mad. And so like just seeing this saint who just would go to mass as much as possible, like just totally inspired me. And it's so that like the receiving of the Eucharist as much as possible, like the grace that's given me cannot be counted. On top of that, I think praying the rosary as well. Like I try to pray it every day. Um, a lot of times I fall asleep while doing it, but that's on me, right? But um, just praying that, like, I don't know, the Mary has definitely just shown herself to me throughout this past year. I did a consecration to Mary that ended in uh, June, I believe. Um, and so, like, this deepening in my respect and my love for Mary um, has really anchored me. And I think the friends that I've made at the Newman Center are the third one that probably has anchored me the most. Like, um, just these Catholics who are with you, who you're hanging out with, they push you because they'll go to daily mass with you. They'll say, "Hey, want to go to adoration?" They'll invite you to do all these things, and so you're growing in friendship, but you're also growing in holiness. Um, so I think those are the big three that's kind of helped me stick with my faith and to fight, you know. So
Yeah, it's hard to argue with those. The Eucharist, Mary, and yeah, your band of brothers. And saints often come in pairs or companions. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
we're
Good.
hoping for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're striving. We're striving. It's all in the Lord's hands. So,
Mhm.
um, awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, what is, I guess, kind of what's your goal, I guess, or maybe not goal, but like, what's your hope or vision for this year as we're starting out a new academic year for you, your junior year? And yeah, what's your vision for that? What do you feel that the Lord is inspiring you to do this year?
Yeah. So what I'm really looking forward to is just seeing a lot of the fruits that God's been growing, right? So like, over the past year, you see this striving for um, meaning because people's lives have been very rough. They've been alone under COVID. They've been isolated. Um, and so it's Welcome Week right now up at NDSU, and so we've seen so much interest in Bison
Mhm.
Catholic by Catholics, non-Catholics, just so many people looking for connections. So just really being able to serve uh, like the campus of NDSU and like turning it not so much as like a me thing, like what I want to do, but I really want to get that service minded attitude towards this and really just give everything I can to these people and these freshmen and try to pour a little bit of it back. I can't remember what saint it was. I think it was Saint Benedict. He described like giving as not like a stream, like of God's grace flowing through you, like the water, but as like a reservoir that
Mm.
you become so filled up that you just overflow with grace and with love And so I feel like the last year or two has been preparation for me to try and, fill up, and then so I can overflow to as many people as I can.
Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. Yeah,
Yes.
that's where the quote comes
Yes.
from. Yeah, to be a reservoir and not a channel. That's awesome. Good. Well, Asher, amazing story. It was so awesome to have a front row seat to like see how God was transforming your life and is continuing to transform your life. And so I'm confident that if you stay rooted in the Eucharist and Mary and your band of brothers there at NDSU, that the Lord is going to do amazing things through you, continue to do amazing things through you. So thanks so much for coming on, sharing your story, and I'll be praying for you and everyone at the Newman Center. Hope you have a fruitful year.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. God bless.
God bless.
All right. Bye.
Bye.